Hi everyone, Scott Stalker here. Hey, I just took a phone call from an individual I highly respect, a sergeant major, and a few days ago I had another call with an individual who just pinned on his first star, and he's a general officer now. Congratulations. And interestingly enough, both of these very senior leaders wanted to talk to me about some things that they're dealing with, which is imposter syndrome. And I thought, wow, if these two individuals are thinking about this and how it impacts them, why don't we talk about this as well? And I'll offer some thoughts. So first off, what is imposter syndrome? How is it defined? Well, I had to look that up because I have my own thoughts on that. But let me tell you what the definition of it is, and so we can understand what the thing is we're trying to solve, and then go into some stories and then how we can solve what is known as imposter syndrome. So it's a psychological pattern in which individuals doubt their accomplishments, maybe you felt that way before, have a persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud, and attribute their success to luck or external factors, rather than their own abilities. And so I think some of us may have felt some things like that along the way as we've moved up in the ranks or in our personal or professional lives. It often leads to feelings of inadequacy, self-doubt, and anxiety, despite evidence of competence and achievements. So others have seen greatness in you, and despite that evidence, you still have that self-doubt. Lastly, people experiencing imposter syndrome tend to downplay their accomplishments and live in fear of being found out as not being as competent or as others have perceived them to be. So that's the definition of imposter syndrome. And some things I want to pick apart there is luck, right? People attributing luck. Now, certainly in the military, timing has a lot to do with assignments and often promotions, but I've rarely met anyone who's made it to the top because they were lucky. Maybe you can fool them once or twice and you can get to that E2, O2, O3 level, E3 level, but rarely are you going to be a non-commissioned officer, a chief petty officer, a senior individual, a commander who got there because they were lucky. And so I think you should downplay that. But why these two individuals, and maybe you felt like they have some imposter syndrome, and these are meat-eating warriors. These are not folks like the last couple of years where I was sitting in an office and having office-type jobs. These are meat-eaters out on the front lines. My response to them is I think that they have this because they have such high expectations of themselves. Their expectations are perfections, and that's a good thing. Just like when you get in front of an audience for the first time and you're publicly speaking, you may have butterflies. That's a positive thing. That means you care. That means you love what you do and you want to do well. And so imposter syndrome, I would flip that a little bit and think of it as not a negative, but a powerful tool, knowing that you care so much and you have such high expectations that you want to do well. Now, let me share with you a personal experience about how I also had imposter syndrome at a time in my career. And this is as I had just been selected to be the senior enlisted leader for the National Security Agency and United States Cyber Command. I was in a meeting my very first day there in the office. There's probably 25 or 30 others in there, to include the 4-star admiral at the time that I worked for. And we were going around the horn, and I was thinking to myself, oh my goodness, these people are going to find out that I don't belong here, that I'm a fraud, and that someone else should have gotten this job. Now, maybe you think that about me, but the point is that I was selected through a process, and I know deep down that I did earn that spot. But I was listening to these experts, these brilliant individuals talk about a variety of different topics and things and their expertise, and giving that feedback to the director of the National Security Agency and the commander of United States Cyber Command. And I was thinking to myself, wow, I don't know if I belong here. And so what I did is I listened more, I talked less, and I left with some notes on some things, and I set out to sit down with each of those individuals and listen to them on a one-on-one basis. But I also went through this idea. I didn't call it imposter syndrome. I was just not quite sure if I was the right guy or person for the job at the time. All right. I dealt with it. I committed myself to lifelong learning and to improving. I set goals. I reached out to mentors and coaches along the way, and I persevered. And some would say I had a successful tour there. That's not for me to decide. But I want you to think about this. And if it ever has an impact on your mental health, that's when this is a problem. And this is when you need to go see a medical professional. You need to reach out to a mentor, a coach, a chaplain, something like that. If it's just the butterflies, if you're not quite sure, I don't think it's on the mental health side, but if it is, you need to see a mental health professional when it gets to that level. Most people I talk to, that's not where this is at. They're just thinking, man, are they going to find out I'm a fraud? Or they're asking themselves, do I really belong here? I'm pretty confident you do if you got selected, especially in the armed forces. So how do you overcome imposter syndrome? Well, listen, just like when you were first in the armed forces, let's use the analogy of you're in an infantry unit, an infantry battalion. It could be a variety of different units. But when you first got there, we needed to be really good at your job. As you moved up in rank, I no longer needed you to be that squad leader. I now needed you to lead the company, the battalion, the regiment, whatever echelon. You're where you are because that's where we need you to be. I'm quite certain if you're a senior enlisted leader or a commander, you could go back and be that excellent squad leader. But we don't need you there. We need you to be where you are today, advising, leading, mentoring, taking care of others. And in my last position there at United States Space Command, absolutely, I could go back to 1st Battalion, 7th Marines. I could go to Marine Corps Special Operations Command and be a great squad leader. But that's not what I was needed to be. That's not what I was needed for. I was needed at the table to advise senior leaders who are going to make decisions who may impact those squad leaders. And so think of that as you're trying to overcome these challenges of imposter syndrome. Don't be so hard on yourself too. It's really great that you want to be perfect and excellent at what you do. But if you have a culture and a mindset that you can't make mistakes, how do you expect others to make mistakes and to grow from them? So stop being so hard on yourself. We love you. You should love yourself as well and know that you're doing excellent at what you do and you're doing your best. Like I said, if this gets in the way of your performance, though, please do seek professional help because that's important, not just for you, but for those that you lead and that are in your charge. Hey, I want to wrap this up. I don't think this needs to be a long conversation. We can follow this more in the comment sections if you need, but just a few words of encouragement. I have seen all of the services and how they promote, and I've seen this now in the civilian sector as well. And yes, I'm not naive. The good old boy network does exist, and it does occasionally creep its way in. And we got to continue as leaders to stamp that out. But I'm convinced that in the military, across the joint force, that we consistently get it right. I just emailed an individual who she got selected for her 3rd star, and I congratulated that individual, and she earned it, just like you have. So whether you're getting ready to be a chief petty officer, whether you're getting ready to earn your bachelor's degree, you're going through a hard course, when they pin that on you, know that you earned it. And that imposter syndrome that you may feel, that is a positive thing because you care so much and you expect greatness and excellence out of yourself. All right, everyone, let me know what you think of this conversation here on imposter syndrome, some ways you may have dealt with this, maybe some ways that I ought to consider how to deal with this as well so that I can share this with everyone watching this video. Thank you again for watching, for following, and for subscribing to my channel. I appreciate it. Thank you.